Welcome back to Sawtooth Tactical. Today we're going to talk about optics, specifically optics mounting on your handguns. And while I think that optics are the future, and in fact the present, and as you can see, most of my handguns have optics at this point, because while iron sights are perfectly effective, optics are just better. But I think that I'm going to make the argument in this video that if you're looking to get a new pistol and there's an optics ready version and a non-optics ready version, maybe get the one that's not optics ready. If you want to know why I'm thinking that, make sure you're subscribed and let's talk about it. So this is my argument. You can get an optics ready pistol that has a plate system like this Springfield Prodigy here, or a pistol like my M&P 2.0 that was not optics ready, and I had to send the slide off and get it milled for the specific optic that I wanted to run. Now, if you go this route, it's going to cost you more money generally, and it's going to be a bit of a hassle. You're going to have to send your slide off and not have a working pistol for a while. In my case, I actually sent my slide off. The Postal Service lost it. They went through this whole process, if you guys remember the build series on this M&P 2.0, but they didn't even want to honor the insurance claim that I had paid for, and I had to fight them. Eventually, they paid out the insurance on it. I had to buy a new slide, send that slide off to get milled for an optic, re-cerakoted and everything else. But I'm still glad that I did it that way. There are, Glock, you can get their MOS system, which is a modular optic system, meaning that it has plates for different optics. This Prodigy, same kind of deal. It came with a plate for their Hex series of optics, the Dragonfly and so on, which apparently nobody likes those optics. I was never even considering running one of those optics. And so then you have to pay, depending on when you get it, $60 or $120 for the plate of your choosing. I got the RMR plate, probably the most popular optics, pistol mounting optics plate that there is, but I had to pay extra for that. And I've had issues with it. You know what I haven't had issues with? The direct mount on this slide, the direct mount on this slide, the direct mount on this slide. And that's kind of my point here. So my brother just got but he has a Smith & Wesson M&P 2.0 10mm. That has Smith & Wesson's C.O.R.E system, which again isn't like a modular optics ready system with plates. That one actually uses polymer or plastic in layman's terms plates. A lot of people, whether they're running the Smith or a Glock or something else, they go to the third party to get their optics plates because generally the OEM ones are not very good. And a lot of people have, talked about issues that they've had with them. I myself have had issues with this Prodigy. And while people have talked about a lot of issues with these Prodigies when they first came out, I didn't have any of those issues. My gun has ran perfectly reliably. But the one issue that I have had, the optics plate. I had to remount this optic, not really the optic, but the actual plate multiple times. This is the Agency optic system, which Agency Arms does great stuff. And it dovetails in. It should be a very solid system. But in doing research, I found that I'm not the only one that has had issues with this. The problem is that even with blue Loctite, even using a torque wrench and doing everything the way that you're supposed to do, my plate came loose multiple times. And eventually I used Vibratite and again torqued it to the correct spec. And it hasn't had any issues since. But it was something that I had to deal with for a while, which is a bit of a bummer when you get your optics zeroed in perfectly. You're out there shooting, having a great time. And this pistol specifically is a very accurate pistol. And then at the end of my range session, from 30 yards, I'm not able to hit the target when I was hitting it from 50 yards before that. Turns out my optic plate had come loose again. Like I said, that is not an issue that I've had with any of my direct mount optics. And while yes, it was more of a hassle to deal with this specifically because the post office lost my slide Had they not lost the slide, it wouldn't have been that much of an issue to get it sent off and milled for an optic. And I think that that's the way to go. This Glock 19X, if I decide to put an optic on it, which I pretty much decide to put optics on everything, I'm glad that this didn't come with the MOS system, because I'll just get it direct milled for whatever optic I choose, and I doubt that I'll have any issues with it. This PSA dagger here, this is a Palmetto State Armory. It's a cheap, affordable Gen 3 Glock clone that I built out kind of like a Gucci Glock on a budget. We did a build series on that. But the cool thing about the dagger is you kind of a la carte order the different parts. And when you order a slide, you can get it milled for either an RMR cut or a doctor cut. Now, I'm not sure why anyone would get a doctor cut, but you can argue with me in the comments if you think that doctor cut optics are better. I feel like the RMR cut is the way to go because it gives you the most options. It's almost the industry standard at this point. The Trijicon RMR, it was basically the first popular pistol optic. It's still one of the best ones you can get. But Holosun with the 407, 507C series and others fit that RMR cut. And so I ordered a slide with an RMR cut and it fit the optic that I wanted. And I've never had an issue with it. This thing has never come loose. It's never been a problem. And in fact, I've used this gun to test multiple other optics that have been sent to me for review. They all come RMR, like with the RMR footprint. Not all of them, most of them. Either the RMR or the RMSC, which is like the 407, 507K footprint for micro compact pistols. Those are kind of the two industry standards at this point. And even one that I did a review on that was a closed emitter optic, the Sealy Bear, it came with a plate for an RMR. And in fact, another example of that is this. So while this one is milled for the Holosun EPS, which that just happened to be lucky. This was the first pistol that I ever mounted an optic on. And at the time I wasn't making a whole lot of money. And so I had it milled for the Holosun K series. The micro pistol optic here, which is this one. This is actually the optic that used to be on this gun. And it worked fine on it, but it wasn't really the appropriate optic for a full-size gun. And then Holosun came out with the EPS, which is a full-size optic that uses the K footprint. So I got really lucky that I had a direct mount optics cut for the EPS. That's actually very rare. And the EPS comes with an adapter plate for an RMR footprint because so many pistols are milled for the RMR. It just happened to work out really well for me because instead of having to use that plate, I was able to take advantage of all of the benefits of the EPS. One of the things being that it has the lowest deck height in the industry, and so that I could still co-witness my standard iron sights, through this optic window without having to get suppressor height sights. And that's another reason to direct mill. You might not have to replace your sights. Same thing with my P365 XL with the X macro slide here, direct mount 407K, and I can co-witness the SIG X-Ray 3 day and night sights through the optic without having to get taller iron sights. That is one of the benefits of not using a plate system. You get to mount your optic lower to the slide, which is a plus in my book. Besides being able to mount lower to the slide, one thing people always talk about when it comes to an optics plate system is that it's one more point of failure. And as much as I used to think that was kind of a BS statement, it turned out to be true because the only pistol optic that I've ever had come loose is the one that I have on a plate system. All of my other pistol optics are direct mounted to the slide, and none of them have ever come loose through thousands of rounds between them. So it really is an added point of failure, and that is a legitimate thing. So my argument at the beginning of the video about why I think it makes more sense, even if you're going to run an optic, to get a non-optics ready pistol and have it milled like I did with this one, you get, for one thing, say you're going to run something like the EPS, you get all the benefits of the lower deck height, the smaller footprint, and all of that without having to use stack adapter plates. And, you get to actually run your optic closer and lower down to your slide. Now, with some things, that's not possible. On a 1911, or like a 2011 in this case, the slides are very thin and narrow. And so in order to mount anything besides like a K-series micro pistol red dot, you're going to have to use some kind of a plate. There is a 2011 that just came out recently. Can't think of which one it is off the top of my head, but they actually did it right. They actually machined into the slide that it comes out a little bit here for an RMR footprint. That is how I think 2011s should come from now on, because again, direct mount rather than plate system. I understand the point of a modular optics system in that you can then decide to use whatever red dot you want. But I also think that if you're getting a pistol, maybe just figure out which red dot you want beforehand and then just send it off and get it milled for the dot that you want. Chances are you're probably going to use an RMR cut. Maybe not. There's a lot of other things on the market these days. I'm really glad I don't have an RMR cut on this one and that the K-series footprint worked out perfectly for my Holosun EPS full size. But I sure, my only issue with the Springfield Prodigy has been that optic plate. Luckily, I've got it worked out now. Vibratight, torquing things correctly, fixed my issue. And that's another thing, that when you do mount optics, use blue Loctite or Vibratight. Blue Loctite has worked great for me on everything except for the one with the plate system, and torque things to the correct spec. But just to reiterate my point, before I even had a torque wrench, I had pistol optics. And a lot of them, I didn't add any blue Loctite because a lot of the Holosun ones at least come with some blue Loctite already on the screws. And I literally just hand torqued them to what I felt like was right. And they've never come off. So I'm a believer in direct mount optics. Luckily, with a lot of, carry guns, the slimline pistols, a lot of those these days are milled specifically for that RMSC Holosun K-series footprint. And so you can direct mount most of those guns, which is a good thing. But a lot of guns, again, like Gen 5 Glocks with the MOS, the new MMPs with the C.O.R.E system, you can get them optics ready, which I used to think was a great thing. But honestly, I'm glad that I had to send this off to get milled. And my other pistols that were already made for direct mounting optics, it's just a better way to do it. So I think figure out which optic you want, get your slide milled instead of getting a modular optic system. You might save yourself some headaches. Plus it'll just look slicker, cooler. You have, again, less failure points, lower optic height. It's a win-win in my book. If you liked this video, please give me a thumbs up. Let me know down in the comments if you agree with me, or if you disagree and you think that a modular system with plates is the way of the future. I don't think so. I understand that sometimes you got to do what you got to do, but I think direct mount is the way to go if you can do that. From Sawtooth Tactical, stay strapped or get clapped.